bag is primarily tire tools with a few other things. I've got a front and rear tube. I'll sit there. I keep a chain tool, chain breaker. And this one here is primarily my tire spoons and a few other odds and ends and some sockets. Keep here's tire pump. Packing around the spare bearing kit and a fuel pump rebuild kit for the last couple of years as well.
So my toolkit consists of most everything that I've ever needed to use whenever I've been on a long trip. So there's a few things in here that are not necessary for your like day-to-day use kit. I still tend to pack them around because if you're like me, you just forget things even on the long trips if you don't have them as part of your kit anyway. So here we'll get into a breakdown of the individual stuff that I carry. But the Motion Pro PBR chain tool is a really solid tool. Takes up a little space, has a bit of weight. I wouldn't necessarily carry it on a day ride if it wasn't already in part of my pack. But if you ride heavy off-road and rocks and stuff where you might damage a chain or something, it might be useful to carry. And of course, on the long trips, I tend to change my KLR chains every, it's dependent on my chain maintenance and how I'm riding, but every 6,000 to 12,000 miles. So on a really long trip, there's a chance I could end up needing a new chain along the road. So that lives in my kit in spite of the weight. Something else I forgot to mention is I carry a jump pack as well on the bike. That lives in one of my side boxes. Is not always there when I go for, say, a day ride, but that'll jumpstart even a 6-cylinder car in warm weather, and I'll jumpstart the bike several times. I started carrying that, after I got it for Christmas a year or two ago, and I have jumped my bike once when I charged the phone for too long, so it's proven to be useful. And I've got just a regular battery-powered tire pump that's rechargeable. I can charge it on the bike. This has been a decent option for me, a little bit lighter option, runs off the bike battery. They have a few pumps like that as well that run 12 volt off bike battery, but this is what I carry for a tire pump. And then I guess I have a particular paranoia about having a flat that I can't fix and being stuck somewhere, so I carry a front tube and a rear tube and a patch kit. So jumping back over here to my tool roll that's mostly for tire changes, I've got some tire patches for, I bought those after I had some tire interior wall damage due to some stupidity of me leaving a tire spoon in my tire and damaging it. I carry a couple extra valve stems. Those caps have just been in there since I got them. I've got actual tube patch kit here that I carry. And then I have, I guess those are just floating around in there from one of my last roadside changes, and I haven't taken them out. I've got a valve stem removal tool here. That's just a generic from who knows where. I've got a tire pressure gauge. I've got a mix of zip ties, although my stash is getting kind of slim. Some thin wire. I forgot I had a round file in here. I don't need that now that I'm carrying the flat file over there. These Motion Pro bead breaker spoons are the best tool for tire changes that you could buy. It's easy to break your bead with these working together to pry it apart. They're super useful. They're well designed. They're strong. They're small. They're really light. They're packable. I would recommend you get a pair of those if you don't already carry one. Things to add to the list of things I carry that I really wouldn't need to. 27mm socket that specifically fits the front sprocket nut on the shaft there off the engine, and that is the only reason that's in my kit. I did have to change that on my trip to Belize 2 years ago because that was 9,000 miles to where I stored the bike and then another 5,000 home, and I had to change it on the road. I just haven't gotten rid of the socket. It's useful to have. You do want a 6-point socket for that if you happen to carry one. I can't remember what I got the 24 for, but it fits something on the bike, and I have it. And then the 17 in this, the large drive is just because I didn't have 17 for my 1/4-inch drive, and I happen to have this breaker bar, which is just a light, compact, easy thing to carry for using with those bigger sockets. And then I have 2 extra tire spoons because you pretty well have to have 3 to do a tire change. My favorite one, other than those, the bead breaker ones, I think this Motion Pro spoon here has got the best shape. I've got a couple of cheaper ones. I've got a couple different brands kicking around my garage. And the shape and design of this Motion Pro here on the left is better. Slips in easier. It's got a better surface. It's just a really, really good spoon to use. So I recommend that and these 2 above any other spoon, and I've used several. The flat file that I carry is specifically, at least the purpose I carry it for, is to file one side of a chain link before I use my chain breaker tool to take it apart. It makes it a lot easier to press that out. So that covers that tool roll. With all of that set aside, we'll move over here to my, what I would call my regular maintenance tools. Mostly because they're just a little bit long. I carry a 19mm wrench. This fits the rear axle on one side of the KLR. And the reason I carry the long one, it rides loose in my toolbox outside of the tool roll just because the tool roll doesn't fold around it. The reason I have the long one is this is the one that I use to break the nut in the rear axle. It gives me a little bit more leverage than my short 27, which is for the other side of the rear axle. And this is, I forget where I bought it, but a generic 27 and 19 combo wrench for the rear axle of that bike. Between this and that, that's for the rear axle for chain adjustments and removing the rear wheel. The 17, I believe actually it goes to a crash bar nut somewhere on the bike. And there might be a couple other places that I use that, but that is something that I need at times. And then I've got a pair of pliers. Those are very much useful to have. I've got a screwdriver with multiple bits in the back of it so that I've got a multiple driver in one for whatever you might need there. This is a 14mm Allen wrench that I carry in this KLR kit for my front axle. There's a pretty cool option sold by 3D Cycle Parts that I have in my other KLR kit. And I have another one here. It's just a small, light 14mm block with a 14mm and a 27 combo wrench to turn it for the front axle. It's much lighter, much smaller. I bought this second and I just haven't replaced it in this kit. But that's an option to consider. And then I've got an assortment of wrenches, 10, 12, 13, 14, and 15. And I've used all of those. Over here I have another tire pressure wrench, mostly, or tire pressure, which is mostly because I forgot I already had one in the other kit. It's useful to have one in your main access kit because you got to check tire pressure more often than you need to fill them. This was, I can't remember, this was a 6mm Allen wrench, and I can't remember what that was for. I think actually, yes, I know. It's for the the lock bolts on the front axle of the KLR. And I also carry just a multi-metric Allen wrench set, but this longer one gives me a little bit better leverage and does a little bit better job with those front axle nuts, so that's why that's in there. And I've got a few more zip ties, and then this is from Rocky Mountain ATV. Just a flexible combo 1/4-inch drive T-handled socket wrench that is super flexible and easy to use. And then over here in the zip pouch, probably need to go through some stuff, but I have some extra valve cores that have just found their way in there. I have a extra chain link, master link for my chain, and I can't remember which of these two master links actually goes to the chain I have on the bike. You always want to make sure that your spare master link you carry is the correct one for your type of chain. So that's why there's two in there, and I'll have to figure out which one goes to the bike because I should remove the other one. Keep a roll of electrical tape. Never know when that might be useful. If you've been around KLRs very long, thread locker blue is your buddy. That needs to go on a lot of things. So I carry that. I've got a fistful of cotter pins for the rear sprocket nut floating around in here. I have some assorted metric nuts and bolts that are in here. I keep a spare lock nut set for, or a nut set for the rear chain adjustment on the KLR in there because I haven't lost one since I started paying attention after the very first time I lost one, and I didn't have this tension tightened into the other one enough to lock it in place. Once I lost one, I learned my lesson, and I have never lost a second one. With that said, knowing you could lose a second one, I have been packing this around ever since that happened. Tighten those correctly, you shouldn't have a problem. A couple tiny rolls of duct tape, just because they're there. This is a bypass jumper switch or plug for the kickstand start safety switch that I have not installed, but if I ever have a failure with that switch, I will disconnect it and plug that in, and that will solve the bike's failure to recognize that the kickstand's up. And then I've got an assortment of sockets for various reasons, basically ranging from 8 to 15. I have a 1/4-inch elbow joint, which is useful for somewhere on the bike. The reason I put it in there is because I needed it once and I don't remember where. And then I have a little extension for the T-handle thing here. One alternate option to consider, which I have not bought dedicated sockets for my kit to replace these 1/4-inch drives with, is this Motion Pro 27mm 3/8 drive attachment. That's made to go with your emergency rear axle wrench, snaps into place, and gives you a regular drive socket for the bigger sockets, which could be absolutely awesome and would eliminate or reduce your need for this, although I actually really like that T-handle, so I'd probably carry that anyway. I think eventually I'm going to get a mix of sockets to fit this and maybe an adapter and replace that big heavy bar with this, and then it would save me a little bit of space and weight. So that's something that is a new addition. I just bought one and haven't added it to my kit yet, but something else that I'm considering in the future. So that pretty well sums up the toolkit. As far as extra parts that I carry, it all depends on where I'm going, how worn my, say, sprockets and chain are, and what I expect to be doing next for maintenance. On a long trip, if I haven't just recently replaced my chain and sprockets, you'll often find me packing a spare sprocket chain set, because, well, when you're riding 9,000 miles in one trip, and you know that you're going to need to change those things halfway through, it's easy just to pack them from the beginning, because I do keep a set here in the garage, so all I got to do is throw them in my boxes if I need them. The things I pack around in my boxes is a fuel pump rebuild kit from 3D Cycle Parts. These cost $99, or did when I bought them. A replacement fuel pump for an OEM fuel pump for the KLR650 3rd gen is going to run you nearly $400 if I remember right, or sometimes hard to get. I bought this back when they were first saying that the 2022 KLR650s had a recall in their fuel pumps. Mine was not on the recall list. People on the forums were saying, well, that's still a failure point, and I was worried about it being a failure point. So I bought the rebuild kit, and now 56,271 miles later, I haven't needed it, but I've got peace of mind. You could rebuild that thing on the side of the road if you needed to, and it's been worth packing it. It's not anywhere near this bulky. I just have it packed in foam, wrapped in tape, and still have a box under it with some stuff in there. just to protect it, since I know it's been rattling around for 50-some thousand miles on my bike. And then I've got some front and rear bearing sets, replacement seals for the front and rear of the bike, and, well, more electrical tape, I guess. And the reason I've been packing those is because I did have the rear cush drive bearing go out on the bike at about 31,000 miles, and at that time I replaced that after a bit of a fiasco and tracking a spare one down, and eventually ended up replacing the rear hub just to have it all done clean in case of damage at the time. And ever since then I've been like, bearings are light, I'll pack them. I just got to find somebody with the right size sockets to drive the old ones out or something, and I will be able to have the parts along with me on the road. A peace of mind thing that, honestly, if your bearings are in good shape when you leave on a trip, they'll probably still be in good shape when you get back. But I've been packing them. They're light, they're small, they're easy to carry around. And I halfway figure sometimes that, maybe I'll run across somebody else that needs one. I don't know. Then as far as fluids that I carry on my bike, I've got a fistful of those. My KLR has been burning oil since about the 20,000 mile mark, so I carry a full quart plus a partial quart, as much as I can, of oil. I've got chain lube. Whatever brand you use, carry that. I don't necessarily endorse a particular brand. It's just I use it less than I should, but I use it. Not exactly bike maintenance, but this is relevant, is a helmet refresh bacteria killer spray. Really nice when you spend couple of weeks straight in the road without time to pull your pads out and clean them. I've been carrying WD-40. Don't ask me why I haven't actually used it, but I thought I might someday. This is extremely valuable. That is not dish soap. That is actually tire bead seating lubricant, which is like gold if you got to do a field tire repair to have along. I packed dish soap in this bottle, like a thick dish soap water solution, for a while until I ran out. And then I got a hold of this from a tire shop and refilled my bottle, and that is nice to have. So that's what I carry for fluids in the boxes. Obviously, I drop the boxes sometimes for local rides and stuff, but again, don't need oil on a local ride. You can survive without bead lubricant if you had to do a roadside change, although that would kind of suck. Even water can help a little. Anyway, I'd say one additional thing that I didn't talk about that I need to add to my kit, and I keep intending to and just haven't bought at the store, would be like a JB Weld quick set epoxy, because there's a lot of things you can fix with that whenever you might not have another solution. Anyway, that is the third generation KLR650 toolkit that I pack around and have for a very long time. I have done almost all of my maintenance, minus I've pulled some extra tools out for my valve checks, which is a pretty involved process. Although, other than the need for a torque wrench when you're inside your engine, I think that I could probably do a valve check with the tools in my emergency toolkit too, just about. I do much of my routine maintenance with the toolkit that I pack on the bike, and I think you should too. The reason why is because that is the way you identify holes in your kit. You find things that would be cool to have. You discover, hey, this tool isn't so useful after all. There's something better I can replace it with. And by using your emergency toolkit for your maintenance, you identify all the little things that you might end up discovering you need in an emergency situation before you have the emergency, that then you're stuck when you don't have the right tool. So that's that. You've got my 2 cents on all of that. Thanks for watching. If you made it this far, if you enjoyed the video, let me know. If you got any suggestions, additional things that you think are particularly valuable or have found that you would like to add or want to put in your kit that I didn't think of. I'm always open to suggestions. Every now and then I learn something from somebody else. It's like, oh yeah, that's a cool tool. Great option, and I will add something to my kit that I hadn't thought of or needed yet. I hope next week to get a video on my South Kennel road in Yukon Territory ride out. And after that, within the next couple of weeks, I hope to put out the North Kennel trip video. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned and watch for the next adventure coming soon.